the view within Israel is that this is a bad deal. I mean, overall, I think that's a majority opinion. That's not just the extremists. And the extremists, the Smotriches and the Ben-Gvirs are livid. They're just completely, up in arms. And I think I saw this morning that Ben-Gvir has already resigned and is pulling out of the coalition. Smotrich has said that he will stay, but it's on the understanding that they will go back in. We see there are these, we're looking at it from the reasonable kind of more international point of view, but within Israel, it's something completely different. There isn't really, they feel like it's a job that hasn't been completed. They haven't destroyed Hamas. And then the settler people, the extreme Zionists, we're looking, at least northern Gaza as new territory for Israeli settlement and expansion, and now they're having it snatched away from it. And I think they're going to potentially, to respond violently if the ceasefire actually holds. So. Again, let's not forget that, we're seeing this again from kind of a rational and, more or less objective point of view. This is going to hurt Israel. But within Israel, this is actually, it's not so clear that this agreement, this ceasefire, is going to help Netanyahu. He may feel that for domestic political reasons, he needs to go back in, and he just may do it.
Right. Yeah, because if he doesn't go back in, then if this war stops, does that mean that like his the criminal cases against him will proceed, and then he'll just be viewed as the person that committed half a genocide, and it destroyed Israeli public opinion? World opinion of Israel.
Right. Well, it seems like the Israelis, most of them don't care. I mean, like some of the people who write for Haaretz obviously care about that, but most Israelis is just like, just giving a big finger to the rest of the world. Otherwise, how would they be doing this? I think as I mentioned last time, there has been kind of shift within domestic politics, which has changed, it has made Netanyahu's position more secure. Before, if Smotrich and Ben-Gvir pulled out, he would have to completely dissolve the coalition and hold elections. But apparently he's brought in other people. There are other things he can do to keep his coalition going. I think that, again, is one of the reasons why we saw him agree to this deal. In the past, he hasn't. Under pressure from people like Smotrich, he's always torpedoed these deals. It's basically the same ceasefire agreement was on the table back in May of last year. And it went back on the table, I think, like half a dozen times. And each time, Netanyahu played this game. You can remember, there's always the talk of some sort of ceasefire. And then the blame was put on Hamas. And the U.S. State Department, again, is putting the blame on Hamas for the failure of previous ceasefires to take place. But Smotrich himself actually bragged and said, yeah, we shot each one of those down. And Netanyahu just felt like he had to, whatever his own thoughts were, he couldn't afford to lose these guys. But now he can't. I don't think he wants to. Clearly he doesn't want to, but he can. There has been, his position is more secure, and that has really changed the calculus.
Well, kind of what you're saying to me then is that the biggest issue is just really how the Israeli people view this situation. If the society views that this is a bad deal and there's just a huge amount of pressure to go back in, that there's just nothing that they can do about this, right? I mean, it's just this war is just going to continue. It's just going to keep going. Israel is part of that. We've used that term kind of apocalyptic death cult, but that's where they are right now, and if it keeps going, do you want to close the blind? Because
there's just a crack, and I
know, and you're like, it's not there. I'm like, well, I know, it's shining right on your face, Dad.
Yeah, hang on just a second.
So, where were we? I was just saying that it's just this mindset Israeli society have. That's the root of all this problems. That this problem is just going to keep continuing until we have the destruction of Israel, or Israel
Yeah.
blows up the whole Middle East. That's basically nothing has really changed in the grand scheme of
Right,
things.
right. Yeah, I mean it's the vision of a greater Israel, at the expense of all the people that currently, occupy those lands that they plan to take. It's just taken root in Israel. It was always there, but it's just sort of like it's now flowering. It was there with the original Zionist settlers, and it accounts for the Nakba and so on. But now it's just it, it's taking kind of it used to be covert. It used to be incremental. Like we've discussed this many times. The Zionists were always in charge, but they were careful Zionists, and they knew that it was important to maintain support from other foreign powers and not to go too quickly. But that has all caution has been thrown to the winds now, and it's clear that this apocalyptic death cult really is in charge, or is perhaps the major force within Israel. And there's not a whole lot of resistance to it. There's very little resistance. There are some people who clearly would prefer to slow down, but that's not real resistance. So yeah, we're looking at that's a problem that won't go away, and it seems like there is no happy ending to it. It's going to end in some sort of conflagration of one sort or another. One possibility is that we don't know, but there aren't any indications of this. But maybe what Netanyahu is thinking is, let's just kind of at least temporarily pull out of Gaza, and then we're going to focus on Iran. That's always been the for him the golden ring. Is what it's his life's work is to overthrow the regime as he sees it in Iran. Um, yeah, it's the Gaza conflict, though it was so lopsided, it really did cost the IDF. I mean, even in northern Gaza, where they, pretty much had a free fire zone and whatever, up until right up through the last couple of weeks, they've been losing soldiers. A few soldiers being killed every week. And that's significant for the IDF. Again, Israel is a much smaller country. So if you kind of look at it in it's maybe Jewish Israelis are maybe 1/40th of the population of the United States. So maybe you can take like Israeli casualties or deaths and multiply it by 40 to get a sense of what the political impact is within Israel. And then when you look at it that way, it's really quite significant. They've according to their own statistics, nearly 1,000 IDF soldiers have been killed.
I mean, the one thing that I think could potentially save Israel is just if the U.S., if Trump really does have the
Yeah.
backbone to just say, no, we're just not giving you any more weapons. And then they just can't do it. Their whole air fleet
Yeah. No, that's true.
is
Right.
U.S., yeah, U.S. planes,
Right.
U.S. bombs. It's all U.S.
Yeah.
So
I think that's the only hope. You're right. And that's always been true. And, as many people have pointed out, it makes the U.S. role in this, just all the more inexcusable. It's because we were the ones that could have stopped it. Maybe like when after October 7th, there was just no stopping the Israelis. They were just in a state of fear and rage, and they were going to do something crazy. But we weren't. We don't have that. Our government never had that excuse. We were. We were the rational observers, or should have been, honest, who could have just stepped in and say, hey, I understand, but this is not good for you, or the world. We cannot support you. But of course, Biden gave that blank check, figuratively speaking, to Netanyahu, and we've seen the results. So in a way, you can even argue that the guilt is even greater on the U.S. side, because it's so, there's just no justification for it. It's just like fear of losing donor money. That's maybe it. This is okay. We're going to have a genocide because I might lose the election, or I might not get my big checks for my Zionist mega donors. That
right. Yeah, it's
In a way, it's
disgusting.
easier to excuse, the Israelis. So you say, okay, they're unhinged, but you kind of understand why they're unhinged. But it's our job to kind of settle them down, and we just didn't do it. No, we just supported all their worst tendencies.
Right. I mean, Biden just gave Netanyahu a blank check in October when he went to
Right.
Israel the first time. But it doesn't seem like Trump is going to be doing the same thing. Do you think Trump is potentially threatening cutting off arms if they
Well,
continue something like this? I mean, it just seems
yeah,
like,
it's who knows. Again, it's just like with Trump. Again, I think I actually didn't complete my thought earlier. I said there was like two ways of looking at two possibilities, main possibilities of what's going on in Trump's mind. And one is that this is personal. And I think often with Trump, things are personal. It's about his own ego and image, and it's about some other guy that's really annoying him, and he wants to teach a lesson. And perhaps all that's what we're looking at right here. I mean, there were rumors that he got angry at Netanyahu for recognizing Biden as president back in 2020, and he may just say this is payback. And then also, like I said, this is like a feather in his cap. It's something, a personal achievement, but he's not really interested in care. He doesn't really care about the Palestinians, and he won't care if, like, farther down the road that Netanyahu goes back in there, and then he'll just you'll get more fiery anti-Hamas rhetoric from Trump. I think that's really possible. I think it's actually almost likely. That's what I'll say. Now we hope, maybe a bit of evidence supporting this is some of the people around him, like David Sachs, and then this Jeffrey Sachs video or so on. Perhaps I would like to hope that he's beginning to reassess his relationship to Israel and has developed a new understanding of the Middle East. Unfortunately, I think that's unlikely. Just knowing Trump and his history and just his character, I don't think that's what's happening. But I can't say that
it,
that's not happening. If the latter is true, then we have a real reason to be hopeful. If it's something more than just some sort of personal spat and his own ego, then we may see some real friction. And like I said, that he is in a better position to take on Netanyahu and the Israeli government than Biden was, because he really secured his right flank. He's come out as like a Zionist, and there's really, at least in the immediate future, it would be very, very hard to attack him as being somehow a Hamas sympathizer or anything less than an ardent Zionist. Um, but if he really threatens, okay, again, like there's Zionists that are pro Netanyahu and there's Zionists who are anti Netanyahu. So he could go after Netanyahu and not lose support. Because, we've seen, like, for example, who was it? Chuck Schumer, right? He came out and made that speech against Netanyahu, and he's a very fervent Zionist. There's no question about it. But he just doesn't want Netanyahu in there. He wants somebody else. So Trump could go after Netanyahu and still have, maintain his grip on the Zionists. Continue to receive support from them. But if he really goes against Zionist policies long term, I think you're going to see that the knives are going to be drawn, the fangs are going to be bared, and the Israeli government, whether it's Netanyahu or somebody else, they know they have all these assets within the U.S. and they'll just they'll direct them against Trump, and then we'll see a real battle, if that's what happens. But I don't know if we're ever going to get there. It may be that, again, this is something temporary and personal, and then, we'll be back to business as usual. We'll see.
when you say go against Zionist policy, are you talking about really greater Israel as the policy? I mean,
Yeah.
Zionist policy is just
Yeah.
continued expansion of Israel.
Right. It actually started to fight it and started to push it and actually gave some real support to the Palestinians. Then I think you're going to see um, a real, in the media, in Congress, there's going to be just unrelenting attacks on the administration if they go down that road. They haven't yet, but if they do, they definitely will, will see that, and it'll be something. I think at least potentially Trump could put up a better fight. I mean, he's just more willing to fight. That seems clear. He's just that kind of personality. And then
he's not as beholden to mainstream media, to the deep
right.
state, so he's
yeah,
able.
and I think he would probably get the support of the Christian Zionists. That I think he has, that support for him is rock solid. There's a potential that he could put up a pretty good fight. But I would still say that the smart money would be on the Zionists.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not expecting him to adopt pro-Palestinian policies, but just simply to, remove this blank check, this unwavering support for Israel, no matter what it does. That's all we're asking. Is like, okay, well, Israel, we don't support Hamas or the two-state solution, whatever, but we're not giving you bombs to drop on Beirut, to drop on Gaza. That's not, doesn't look good for us. It's not good for you. This isn't something that we want to be involved in. Couldn't he just, Trump could just do the walk away kind of thing? Like, look, I'm not picking sides here. It's
that's just not possible in American politics. You're right. You can't be pro-Palestinian. You would have to say, well, I'm going to just be pro-American and not take sides. That's right. And there's no reason why we have to send you any more weapons. But that is, if he did that, again, that would just that would bring out all, the very ardent Zionist supporters, advocates within the U.S., very powerful ones. And he would have a huge battle on his hands. And I don't know if he wants to do that. Maybe at some point he may think of, but he may just think twice because he'll say, man, they can really hurt me. I got to step back. The first big test, of course, will be the ceasefire. Where it's a 42-day, which is to say a 6-week ceasefire, and if at the end of that, or even before the end of that, the Israelis break it and move back in, and Trump supports them, then we know what happened. It was just personal. It was about his ego, and it was about teaching Netanyahu a lesson. Giving him a spanking for, for recognizing Biden as president back in 2020, something like that.
Right.
It could very well be nothing more than that. We'll have to see. I hope it's more than that.
Well, even if the ceasefire holds, it seems like it would still be the end for Israel, right? Because this ICJ ruling will come out.
Yeah.
The amount of death and destruction that was dealt on the civilian population. I mean, we have reports of 70% of the casualties are women and children. We talked about all these UN workers, hospital workers. It's just been horrific. Journalists being killed. So I don't think while you have the chaos of war and you're not able to get actual reporting or evidence gathering in Gaza, because it is that. Once this does start to open, the ceasefire comes about, it's just the evidence. I just think it already is so damning, and it's just going to mount. And then when sort of that, that war rage subsides, and people start to look at things a little bit more clearly and objectively, like, whoa, man, Israel really, this is irredeemable what they've done.
I think they've done permanent damage to themselves. There's no question about it.
Right. So if the ceasefire holds, I think that's what they're looking at, right? So that they will have international condemnation. If the ICJ ruling comes out that it is genocide, then, I mean, the U.S. is just going to go down with Israel in terms of that it's just such a stain on our history.
Yeah,
like you said about this complicity in genocide that we are actually just so complicit, because every single bomb that's being dropped, every single airplane that's being flown over Lebanon or Gaza, there are planes, and so there are bombs.
Right. That's completely true. And, the world recognizes that fact.